Pittsburgh Steelers safety and longtime teammate of Patrick Queen, DeShon Elliott, just called him out and exposed him for having a bad, inconsistent season this past year, and vows for him to be better this upcoming season because he knows what he can do. But first, before I get more into exactly what he said, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, when we think of Patrick Queen this past season, he signed the biggest offseason free agent contract for an outsider that the Pittsburgh Steelers have ever given out to a player that's not currently on their team. And we expected big things for him to turn around this inside linebacker core and group in general and help this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And to be honest, he played pretty well. From what we've seen of him, you obviously know he could have been better, but it didn't seem as though he was too bad. But DeShon Elliott thought otherwise. DeShon Elliott actually exposed him for his inconsistent play and says that he knows he could be better and he knows that this past season was one of his down years. So DeShon Elliott actually exposed him, called him out, and this is exactly what he said. Here's the quote. "The player that he's capable of being, he didn't play up to his standards. Being one of my really good friends, both in our first year in the defense, it's not something I'm trying to blame it on, but throughout the season, you grow, and there are growing pains. I know he'll be better this year for sure." End quote. So, DeShon Elliott knows Patrick Queen well because he was with the Baltimore Ravens with Patrick Queen from 2020 and 2021. So he understands that that version of Patrick Queen in the Ravens compared to the version that he's in the black and gold right now is not the same one that he saw when they're together, because those constant defensive breakdowns this past year can't happen. And it all starts with Patrick Queen because he has the green dot. He's the main communicator on defense. So when players are confused of what the play is, what the defense assignments are, it lies on Patrick Queen. And even Patrick Queen many times said this past season that he was disappointed in the communication breakdowns on defense and no one was really doing their job. Well, it starts with Patrick Queen because he's the main communicator. So DeShon Elliott knows that that player with the Ravens was not the same player that he saw this past season with the Steelers. And he kind of blames it on it being their first year in the defense, them kind of learning it, but he knows that he has to be better for the Steelers to be better. And to be honest, when looking at what DeShon Elliott said, we knew that Patrick Queen messed up a few times here and there, but we never knew how really bad it was until DeShon Elliott basically just called him out here and exposed him for having a bad year. We thought it was a little bit inconsistent, but to be honest, it didn't look too bad from the outside looking in. But obviously DeShon Elliott, he expects better out of Patrick Queen. So Patrick Queen needs to really get back to doing Patrick Queen type things because he signed that big contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers for a reason. And it's because of what he was able to do. And he kind of followed a slow start in his career with the Baltimore Ravens. That very first season in the NFL wasn't too good for him, but then he started playing like one of the better linebackers in this league. So maybe it's going to be the same thing with the Steelers. His first year with the Steelers, not so good, but down the line, his next 2 years at least, he'll be a better player. Because with the Ravens, you look at what Patrick Queen was able to do, and he wasn't able to crack the top 70 among linebackers in kind of the grading system his first 2 NFL seasons. He placed 31st with a 69.7 grade in 2022. And then that's when everything kind of turned around. Queen played at an even higher level once they brought in another linebacker in Smith, Roquan Smith that is. And then his first season in Baltimore, his first full season next to Roquan Smith, you look at what Queen was able to do, and he was able to make a Pro Bowl. He was able to put up great numbers, and then he earned that contract with the Steelers because of his play. And maybe that's going to be the same thing that happens this season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because guess who's back? Cole Holcomb. And who is Cole Holcomb? Well, he's a really good linebacker. And he was someone who was supposed to turn around this Pittsburgh Steelers inside linebacker group when he first got here. But then he dealt with that injury. But before his injury, he was turning around. He was making the Steelers linebacker core really good, and the play was actually really solid. So maybe having him back and next to Patrick Queen, it can really help Patrick Queen take that next step with the Steelers, just like having Roquan Smith did. I'm not comparing Roquan Smith to Cole Holcomb, but just adding another really good linebacker next to you could really help. Because when you're playing next to a rotation of guys in terms of, hey, it's going to be a rookie next to you and Peyton Wilson here and there. You're going to have Elandon Roberts here and there next to you, which is mainly strictly a rushing type of linebacker who's going to stop the run. You're going to have here and there Mark Robinson. You're not really knowing exactly who's going to be next to you at all times. So maybe having Cole Holcomb back and having Peyton Wilson in that second year leap can really help Patrick Queen get back to his Pro Bowl level season that he just had prior to coming to Pittsburgh. So DeShon Elliott expects big things, and we should as well, because Patrick Queen was not the same player that he was with the Steelers this past season that he was his final seasons in Baltimore. Also, when you look at who Pittsburgh added in the offseason, they added a player in Malik Harrison, who is a player who is with Patrick Queen at inside linebacker at the linebacker group when he was with the Ravens. So he has some type of knowledge of how Malik Harrison likes to play, and they've played together before. So maybe adding a guy like Malik Harrison instead of Elandon Roberts is going to really help this team, because those two players are really similar. I really like Elandon Roberts, one of my favorite players on this defense this past few years that he was on the team, based off the motor he brought, the hit power he brought, and the toughness he brought. It's sad to see him go, but maybe adding Malik Harrison, a player who Patrick Queen is comfortable with and knows how he's going to play, can really help. Because sometimes Malik Harrison did see the field with Ravens, even though it wasn't too often. They know each other, they're friends. Maybe that will help him take that next step as well. So that comfortability and a defense can really help. Because you have to think, it's his first year learning a new defense. You're trying to figure out things for yourself. How the Steelers like to play, how the coverages are. But when you have to do all that, and then on top of that, you have to communicate that, tell the plays to the rest of the defense, communicate where everyone else is supposed to be, that's a big burden for you to have in your first season with a new team. Patrick Queen should be able to take that on. We expected him to take it on, but he's a player who is new. So maybe we expected too much from him right away. But at the same time, that big contract, you would expect him to be able to do what the Steelers asked of him to do. So at the same time, you have to look at it from that perspective as well. They expect someone of that big contract to take on that burden. So the Pittsburgh Steelers had a lot of communication breakdowns this past year. The whole team was saying it. Every player in the locker room after the game was saying, we don't know what's happening. These players are out of position. Wouldn't name guys. They would say, we know who the problem is, but wouldn't name the specific player. We've seen Minka say that. We've seen TJ say that here and there. We've seen Cameron Hayward say that. We've seen Patrick Queen say that. There's many guys on this defense who are saying that, even DeShon Elliott. So maybe this quote from DeShon Elliott is maybe pointing a finger at Patrick Queen, saying that he needs to be better. Because why would he specifically call out Patrick Queen? But anyway, Patrick Queen, hopefully he's able to turn around in Pittsburgh this next year and play his Pro Bowl ways that he played with the Baltimore Ravens. He is that speedy linebacker, but he could do it all. He's sideline to sideline. He's that coverage linebacker, but he's also someone who could come up and make tackles. So he's a do-it-all guy, and he needs to get back to his old ways. But anyway, that's in this video. But then your thoughts in the comments below of DeShon Elliott basically calling out Patrick Queen, saying that he needs to be better after he's down play this past season and inconsistent play. How do you feel about that? And do you think Patrick Queen needs to be better? How do you feel of his overall play this past season for the Pittsburgh Steelers? And how do you think he'll do this upcoming season? Do you think he'll make a Pro Bowl and get back to his old ways? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis, reports, everything surrounding this football team I've covered this offseason. And as training camp is rolling along here shortly with highlights and analysis, I'll have it covered. So stay tuned to the channel, like, comment, and subscribe, turn notifications, comment down below, and I'll see you guys all later. Till the next video, that's it for me. I'm out. Peace.